A signal shape should be.
The contract arrived in silence. Government stamps emphasize discretion, not speed. Some secrets sink deep.
3 days later, the Kaiomaru held its position over the coordinates, a speck on a vast, restless plain.
Below deck, in the glow of monitors, a team worked in practiced silence. The deep demanded perfection. At 1,200 meters, pressure became a physical presence. 600 pounds on every square inch, whispering against the hull. Then, a geometry that did not belong. Twin tails, standing like tombstones in the silt, where no aircraft could be. It emerged from the ooze like a fossil. An air superiority fighter, transformed into an alien, organic reef. The numbers on the tail were ghosts, a call sign from another era, preserved by the very cold that sought to erase it.
23 years ago, it vanished. A training exercise ended in a catastrophic failure, declared lost with all hands.
No wreckage was ever found. The sea had swallowed it whole, and the search found only empty water and fading hope. It had fallen through the water column and found a crack in the world, a trench too deep and narrow for sonar to see. The recovery would be a marathon, 8 hours of preparation, translating human will into robotic precision a mile below.
Cables were threaded like surgical sutures. 2-inch steel, rated for tons, became a lifeline from the abyss.
Life watched them work, alien and languid, curious about the lights disturbing their eternal night. One by one, 6 primary cables were secured, a spider web of steel connecting the present to a 23-year-old past. Dawn on the surface. The lift began not with a jerk, but with the immense, patient groan of hydraulics taking up slack. The wings flexed, a memory of flight stress encoded in metal, now bending to the different physics of ascent. "40 minutes of terror. Then, confirmation. The hold was secure. The lift could continue. The margin for error now gone." Something moved in the peripheral darkness. Massive, silent, a shadow that the sonar glimpsed once before it vanished.
It climbed through boundaries, layers where temperature and density changed, fighting currents that tried to push it sideways.
At 800 meters, the first suggestion of light. Not to see by, but a promise from a world above they had almost forgotten.
400 meters from salvation, the structure screamed. Metal, fatigued by decades and pressure, finally began to fail. A sacrifice was required. The secondary ROV severed the failing nacelle, letting it fall to save the whole. It spun down into the deep. A piece of the puzzle willingly returned to the darkness from which it came. The final 200 meters. The ship's crane took the weight, a giant's hand gently closing around a fragile relic. It broke the surface stern first, water sheeting from its wings like a baptism in reverse. Born from the sea a second time.
Rotated with infinite care from a sinking posture to one of rest. It cleared the rail.
Silence followed the disengagement. Not ceremonial, but the stunned quiet of confronting a thing that should not be here.
Before them, under an open sky, lay the answer to a 23-year mystery. It looked so very small.
Sunlight found it, gleaming on salt crystals and wet, organic shapes, transforming military gray into a shattered mosaic.
The team moved now, documenting the transformation. This was no longer just an aircraft.
Biologists cataloged the life that had claimed it, a full community that had lived and died on this artificial reef.
And then, the cockpit. The canopy was gone, leaving it
Preserved by the cold, dark, and pressure, they found the pilot, held in position by harness and duty, even now.
The name tag survived. Tanaka. Identity, a person, returned from a
They
category.
worked with the care of archaeologists. This was not just debris, it was a grave, a moment frozen in depth, in time.
One hand still gripped the stick. A final connection to the machine. A commitment that lasted beyond life itself.
Decontamination began. High-pressure water scoured away the sea's claim, revealing the machine beneath the monument.
The failure would have been instant. A scream of tearing metal, a violent tumble from the sky towards the waiting.
He wrote it down. Conscious or not, secured in his seat as daylight faded above, and the pressure squeezed the world away.
The data was conclusive. Metal fatigue. An airframe flown beyond its limits. A failure waiting for its moment.
The aircraft's fate would be study. A museum piece, a lesson in engineering, a monument to a tragic oversight. The Kaiomaru turned for port, mission accomplished. A storm gathered on the horizon, as if the sea was reluctant to let go.
On the final evening, one operator stood watch. He stared at the covered shape, not seeing wreckage, but a closed circle.
It carried a different weight now. Not of engines or weapons, but of time, depth, and a story that was finally complete.
The ocean had kept its mystery for 23 years. But even the deepest secrets sometimes rise to meet the light.
He stayed until full dark, under a ceiling of stars, listening to
The weight of wings, made for sky, had been borne by the sea.
And beneath the canvas, salt crystals still grew, a slow, chemical echo of the sea, continuing its work even in the open air.
Through the night, the crew worked, securing their cargo against the growing swell, battening down a piece of history.
Dawn brought the promised weather. The Pacific swelled, reminding them who truly ruled this vast, empty domain. A subdued mood held the crew. The excitement of recovery had passed, replaced by the somber weight of what they carried.
In samples and slides, the reef lived on. A transplanted ecosystem now destined for study under fluorescent lights.
The engineer's report was a verdict. The blueprint and the broken metal told the same, tragic story of predictable failure.
The paper trail existed somewhere. A signature on a maintenance waiver. A decision made under pressure. A risk accepted.
The physical evidence of the deep was washed away. But the memory of it, the feel of that pressure, would remain.
We'll skirt the edge of it. The recovery was done, but getting home was its own kind of mission. The first deep rolls took the ship.
It seemed more imposing now, strapped down, a captive beast from the abyss. Every strap, every chain was tested, each one a covenant against the sea's desire to reclaim what was taken. He thought of the descent, of the absolute calm 1,700 meters down. Up here, the sea showed its fury. The ocean reached for it, a cold, salty hand slapping the tarp, as if to say, "I have not forgotten you."
The crew adapted, their bodies remembering the rhythm of a ship at sea, a dance as old as exploration itself.
The instructions were simple. A port, a rendezvous, a transfer. The official story would be written.
The storm met them in full. The ship became a world of noise, howling wind, crashing waves, and straining metal. Braving the deck was an act of courage. One slip, and the sea would take a new offering without a second thought.
The lashings held. The cargo was secure. The storm would pass, and the land would eventually appear on the horizon.
Dawn brought bruised skies but manageable seas. The violence was over, leaving only a tired, washed-clean world. They peeled back the shroud. Sunlight touched metal that had not felt it for 23 years, drawing out the deep cold. The cockpit, in the light of day, was just a broken shell. The drama of the deep was gone, leaving simple, sad fact.
Life acknowledged it. A bird, a creature of the air, perched for a moment on a machine built to join it.
No words were needed. The shared experience of the deep recovery bound them more tightly than any conversation could.
From above, it was a ship carrying a secret, a speck on the ocean, holding a piece of history torn from the seabed.
The measurements were precise. The crack was a textbook example of failure, a chapter he wished he hadn't had to read.
Somewhere, a family's photo album held a similar image, a smiling face they had long ago stopped expecting to see again.
Small acts of respect emerged, unspoken acknowledgments of the life that had been intertwined with the machine.
Change of plans. Rendezvous point Alpha 7. The mystery wasn't over. It was just entering a new, bureaucratic phase.
The Kaiomaru turned, its mission parameters shifting. They were now couriers for a heavy, metallic truth. Another sunset, this one peaceful. The sea, having tested them, now offered a breathtakingly beautiful apology.
These would be delivered separately, hand to hand, with the reverence such fragments of a person deserved.
Landfall. A blur on the horizon that meant the end of the voyage, and the beginning of a different kind of journey.
The tension bled away. Laughter returned to the mess. The profound isolation of the deep mission was finally over.
The final shroud was applied. It now looked like any other piece of oversized cargo, its true nature hidden from view. They slipped into a quiet bay at dawn. Their destination was not a public port, but a place meant for secrets. The sounds of land were jarring after weeks at sea. Shouted orders, idling truck engines, the clang of heavy machinery. The case changed hands first. A silent exchange, a burden passed from the realm of discovery to the realm of authority. The final lift began. Not from abyssal darkness, but from the deck of the ship that had carried it home.
It settled onto the trailer with a final, solid thud. From deep-sea trench to asphalt road in a matter of weeks.
The engine growled to life. The last leg of the journey would be by land, to a hangar somewhere, for analysis.
Payment for services rendered. A closed contract.
The encrypted channels that started it all now fell silent.
The deck was empty. The space where it had rested looked too large, too bare, as if something vital was missing. He stared into the water, but saw only the reflection of the sky. The trench and its darkness was far behind them now.
The simple gesture said everything. Good work, it's over, we did it. The coffee was just coffee, and so much more.
The crew trickled ashore, seeking solid ground. A meal not cooked on a ship. A bed that didn't rock with the waves. He stepped onto the dock, feeling the unyielding concrete beneath his feet. The world felt still and strangely quiet.
The story made the news, sanitized. A historical aircraft recovered in a joint operation.
The official story was clean, simple, a recovery success. The messy, profound truth was locked away in reports and hangars.
The rain felt different than sea spray. It was impersonal, washing a city that knew nothing of trenches or pressure.
Home, a place defined by absence. The silence here was empty, not like the deep, full silence of the ocean floor. He moved through the familiar space like a visitor. His mind was still 1,700 meters down, in the halogen's glow. He unfolded the ghost, that first clue, a pixelated shape that had held a pilot, a failure, and 23 years.
His dreams would be of that slow circle.
He put the ghost away, not to forget, but to compartmentalize. Some memories needed a drawer, not a frame.
The water was warm, but he couldn't shake the chill. A psychic cold seeped into his bones from the abyssal plane. Sleep did not come. The ceiling was too close. He missed the infinite black ceiling of the deep, miles above the ROV. The city woke up. Life moved on, oblivious. He felt suspended between two worlds, belonging to neither.
The usual place was a featureless building, where the adventure of the sea met the bureaucracy of the land.
The debrief was clinical. They were not heroes, but assets. Their observations were data points to be logged and stored.
His signature sealed the truth away. The experience was now classified, not just as secret, but as his own private burden.
He couldn't speak. The nod was enough. Yes, he had seen. Yes, it was real. Yes, it would stay with him.
Get some rest.
The sun was an assault. The deep had muted everything.
The simplicity of joy felt alien. His mind was weighed with dark water and the patience of geological time.
Two men, separated by generations, sharing a bench and their own private histories. The pigeons knew nothing of either.
The walk became a decision. Each step was a movement away from the trench, back into the stream of his own life. He was drawn to the very thing he might flee. To understand the place that had so profoundly changed him.
It was a textbook, cold and factual. Perhaps by understanding the science, he could quiet the poetry of his memory.
The certificate declared him qualified. It said nothing about being prepared for the psychological toll of the abyss.
His friend's concerns were real, yet they felt like surface disturbances. His mind still held the image of the eternal deep.
So where were you? You vanished for a month.
The question hung in the air. The NDA was a lock on his tongue. Work, he said. Deep sea survey. Pretty routine.
The wall went up. The most defining experience of his life was now a classified, unshareable secret. It was lonely.
He needed to put it somewhere, even if just for himself. Words to anchor the images before they faded or distorted.
It was a start. A simple, true observation that contained multitudes. Disappointment, perspective, the collapse of mystery.
The North Atlantic was cold and green. The mission was different, but the ritual was the same.
His hands remembered. The feel of the joysticks. The tension of guiding a machine into the unseen. Muscle memory.
This was a different ocean. Lighter, more alive near the surface. It held no ghosts for him. Not yet.
The work was clean. A recovery, not an archaeology. A present tense problem, not a decades-old secret. His mind drifted south and west to a specific patch of ocean.
A message from the silence. The official, final report.
He skipped to the appendices. He wasn't looking for data. He was looking for a name, for closure of a different kind. There it was, the bureaucratic end of the story. Captain Kaito Tanaka was no longer missing. He was accounted for. He needed to see the place one more time, not through a camera or a report, but as a point on a vast digital blue.
That was it. A pixel.
He marked the void, a personal cartography, a reminder that the world was full of such points, hiding their stories.
The wall now told a fuller story. Here is what I am qualified to do.
Life moved on. New connections were made, in the light, away from the pressure of the deep.
He had made his choice. The deep was his profession, not his prison. He could work with its mysteries without being consumed.
The weight of wings was borne by the sea. And some men are destined to dive.
In a hangar far from the sea, the fighter underwent its final autopsy. Every pitted rivet, every stress...
The crack was a tunnel into history, a timeline of failure, written in microscopic fractures and crystalline corrosion. Science rendered the tragedy into data. Charts and scans replaced the visceral horror of the deep-sea tomb.
Captain Kaito Tanaka was laid to rest in earth, not water. The flag was folded, a ritual...
Her grief was 23 years old, matured and settled.
The question of its future was answered. It would not be scrapped. It would be preserved, a silent teacher.
A piece of the aircraft, decommissioned and polished smooth. A token. An unspoken thank you from the official silence.
It was just metal now. The soul of the machine, its purpose, its failure, its long sleep, had been left in the trench.
You're ready for the complicated ones now.
She had seen him carry the weight. She knew he could handle more. The deep had forged him into a true specialist.
The mission had changed his questions. It was no longer just can we, but should we? And how do we do it with respect?
His report included words like sacred, memorial, and historical context. The engineer was becoming a historian.
The sea, from land, was a spectacle of power. He understood now that its true power lay in...
He carried the depth within him, but he no longer felt buried by it.
The Kaiomaru was prepared for its next journey. A tool for bridging worlds, for lifting secrets into the light.
He sat before a fresh screen, a new void to interpret. The mystery was the job, and he was
Another ghost in the machine, another story waiting in the dark. He adjusted his headset, and his hands found the controls. And the sea, forever patient, kept its stories. And some East Asian men, forever curious, kept listening for their echoes.